Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Once again, my name is Rob, and I am the Director of Events and Marketing at Power to Fly. Very excited for our next conversation, the recognition multiplier, why recognition drives engagement and retention in the future of work. And we are joined by Yannick Provencher, who is an industrial organizational psychology PhD candidate and a consultant with years of experience in understanding and measuring occupational health and culture. He brings his rich academic and applied expertise to provide effective solutions to improve organizational functioning, drawing on perspectives from occupational health psychology, stress recovery research, and fair assessment practices. Yannick's work aims to inform healthier, more equitable organizations and environments. And now he is working with our friends and partners over at Bucketlist. So, Yannick, welcome to the Power to Fly stage. Super excited to talk to you today.
Well, thanks very much, Rob, for the intro, and really happy to be here today and talk about recognition and how amazing it is. So I think you'll see through that talk, like how a tiny thing like recognition can have a huge impact. So really excited to be here.
Amazing. Well, let's start because you're a PhD candidate, and to me, that means data, right?
Yes.
So let's start with what the data actually reveals about recognition frequency and then also recognition engagement levels.
Yeah. So when it comes to recognition, for it to be effective, one of the first steps that needs to be present and needs to be there is frequency. Your organization or people in your organization have to recognize each other, because if it's not there, then you won't see any impact and things like that. But a lot of research says that if you get recognized or you recognize people frequently, it's going to have a huge impact. Research says it. Us at Bucketlist, we looked into it and we decided to collect our own internal data to figure that out. Like, is it true on our customers as well? So I have a few slides that I'll share if that's okay with you, where I kind
Yes,
of show
please.
something that we did and what's the actual impact of recognizing people in an organization. So I'm just going to share quickly my screen here. This one, perfect. And you can see my slides here, right?
Yes, they're coming up now. There we go.
Perfect. So we did kind of that case study. So we collect customer data, and we delivered a survey that measured different things. So we measured recognition frequency, platform usage as well, and recognition quality. And what was the impact of that on important kind of ROI indicators? So like work engagement, job satisfaction, and turnover intention, which is the likelihood to stay in your organization. So in total, we had like over 1,000 employees across 28 different companies and three global industries. And what we find was consistent with the research and actually pretty amazing is that we separate people into groups. So people who get recognized by their leaders frequently versus people who get recognized by the leader less frequently. And what we mean by frequently here is really if you get recognized monthly or more, then we consider that as frequent. If you get recognized less, than monthly, so yearly or less, we consider that as rarely. And what we find is pretty astonishing if you look at the engagement level, satisfaction level, and likelihood to stay of those employees. So employees who were in the group of rarely recognized, 50% of them reported to be engaged. And that number jumped to 72%, when they were frequently recognized. So employees who were recognized monthly or more were 70% of them reported to be engaged. And you see the same pattern across satisfaction, across likelihood to stay. And for a 500 company, that's a lot, right? It means that you'll have 75 more employees that are engaged. 95 of them will be more satisfied. And 45 of them will be less likely to leave your organization, which will have a huge impact over the long run on your revenue and productivity numbers. And you see the same pattern with peer recognition here, as you can see, has the same impact from people who get rarely recognized to frequently recognized. So kind of quick, stats and stuff that I think I wanted to show to kind of showcase the importance of it all. Yeah, so that's kind of a quick stat here I want to say about the frequency.
I love that. Yeah, in my own personal experience before I came to Power to Fly, I remember I was working for a company that basically we only did one-on-ones with our manager once a year. And I remember when I was then leaving, my manager was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea that you weren't
Mhm.
happy." And it's like, well, I was never heard, we never had these conversations. So that idea of frequency really, I think, resonates with me because sometimes people think,
Yeah.
oh, we can do this once a quarter or something like that. No, there really needs to be a frequent touch points with the employees.
Yeah, that's really important. It's a consistent effort. It's not something that you can just say, I like the comparison of you going to the gym,
Mm,
or doing exercise. Like you want to be healthy, you want to be in shape. You cannot just do it once or twice. It has to be consistent over time. And if you stop doing it, you'll kind of lose it, right? In some way or form. You'll
mhm.
lose the impact of it all. So
Well,
yeah,
and like that too, I think that's such an apt analogy because like if you if you don't, yes, it's spent you have to spend money to work out, you have to spend time to work out, but in the long run, if you don't exercise, the money that you might be spending to help with long-term health problems might be much more significant. And I think of it the same way here. Yes, you might need to spend that money, that time in recognition. It might seem like, oh gosh, like we don't have that to spend or that's such an effort. But when you think about the people that you would then need to replace and the money you spend
yeah,
on training new people, that dwarfs anything that you would be doing in the short term.
yeah. And that health analogy works really well here. Even when you start analyzing the data and things like that, well, we might discuss later as well. So you're absolutely right.
Mm-hmm.
Totally agree what you're saying here. Yeah.
And how does recognition quality directly impact employees' desires to stay? Because I would imagine that the quality of that recognition has it varies
Yeah.
really.
That's a great question and on point. Frequency, like I said, is the first step, right? But the
Hmm.
real multiplier, like if you look in the data, the biggest impact you will see is the recognition quality. And what is recognition quality? I mean, it could be defined in different ways, but we kind of bucket list. We studied that a lot, and we came up at the end with four dimension of it. Is the recognition that you're giving, is it authentic? So does it feel sincere and genuine? Then is it timely? Like are you getting recognized right away, or like a week or less to the good work that you did or the thing you get recognized for, or you get recognized 5 months later, right? Which won't have the same impact that if you get recognized right away. The next one is the fairness of it all. Is it fair? Like, let's say I do something, I get recognized for it, and then my coworker does a similar thing and they don't get recognized for it.
Mm,
That will create tension, friction, and problems as well. Like, you don't want that to happen. You want it to be fair as much as possible. And that can be challenging in many ways because sometimes the roles are different. People work in different teams, they have different leaders, but it's something that, has to manage and is important. And the final one is it personalized? And like I remember once I got recognized, and I'm typically a pretty shy person, like because I had to present a lot, and I do a lot of talks. I'm less shy than I used to be. But there was once I remember, I got recognized in front of my whole team for the work I did, and I just felt really, and then I had to talk about what I did. Oh, Yannick,
hmm.
congrats, amazing work on what you did. Like, you want to share anything? And that gave me a lot of anxiety. And
Mm,
and in the next few days, I was kind of thinking, or sometimes was like, oh, maybe like if I do something good, I have to prepare mentally to actually get recognized in that case or sense. So it can have an impact on you in different ways. So make sure that you're able to recognize people like they like to be recognized.
yeah.
And that's something you can ask them. It's easy. One-on-one meetings, it could be anything. Or you could just ask, I think you did amazing work. I'd love to recognize you publicly. Can I do that? That would be another
Hmm.
way to do it. So these four things are really important. And you really see that multiplier. And we did the same thing in our data. I'm just going to show this slide quickly if that's fine for you. Uh,
Yeah.
and we look at that in the data as well, right here. And what we find for quality is pretty great. The impact it has on all these things. The jump you see was way
Hmm.
bigger. People who don't receive high
Yeah.
quality recognition are not, are not as engaged, satisfied, we're likely to say. That's what we found in our data, and that's also what the research says in a lot of ways. We kind of just use that to kind of validate the research that was done, in research studies and things like that. And if you
Mhm.
look at all the factors, you see like all of them has an impact. You see a jump across all of them, from authentic, fair, timely, personalized, on all those metrics. So it is really important to do that.
I love that. I think this is so helpful for folks because a lot of people might be doing one or maybe two of these, but not all four, right? A lot of people might, oh, we're going to give the recognition in a timely manner, but it's not going to be personalized at all, or
Yeah.
vice versa, right? They might wait 6 months to give the recognition, but make it personalized. So it is the full gamut there. And the one other thing, Yannick, that I think that came to mind in terms of the fairness is I'd imagine that there's a hurdle for some companies in terms of remote and non-remote workers because
Yeah.
in an in-person setting sometimes you can just do like what you mentioned, like you can just talk to the room or bring someone into your office, something like that. It sometimes feels a lot less personal on if you're on Slack or if you're on Zoom. Is that a challenge that you're finding that companies are facing?
Yes, I think companies are getting better at it because now there's a lot of a lot more remote companies, and it forces them. If a company says fully remote, it forces them to actually, adapt in specific ways. But in more hybrid, or companies that you have some people that work remotely and others that work in person, what you see is that 25%, like employees who work remotely get recognized 25% less compared to people that work
Mm,
in, because it's just harder, right?
yeah.
They're not there. You don't see them at their desk. You go get coffee at a coffee machine, you don't see them and things like that. There's a lot of different reasons, but you can adapt to it. And it's just being more kind of digital ready, and having a kind of system in place to recognize uh, people that works remotely. It's easy to do now, like a Teams message, a Slack message, or anything like
Hmm.
that, right? Zoom as well. So you just have to take time to do it.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
I think you're so right. And why does appreciation really strengthen motivation during upskilling and transformation? Because motivation, especially that can be so tough for teams. So how does that appreciation really strengthen that?
Yeah. So when you're talking about upskilling, and transformation, you got to thinking of what happens in the mind of the employee, or what happens to them. Like it's a time where they are more vulnerable. uh, if simply because like when they're upskilling, they're kind of learning something new. They're doing a job or they're learning skills that perhaps they never done before. So they perhaps don't have like the confidence, or anything related to that they have in their previous job, that they did every day, that was automatic, obvious to them. And the same thing for transformation. What happens is that you might be working with new people, different teams, different coworkers, different way to do things, and it brings a lot of uncertainty and that vulnerability. Employees are in a state where it's, they have to deliver more effort than they used to, and there's more anxiety towards what's happening. So providing appreciation and recognition is really a good way to support them, and telling them, I understand what you're going through, and we
Mm,
support you, and we value what you're doing, and you're also allowed to make mistakes. That kind of brings that up. You feel that if you get recognized for things like that, things are changing. You're doing new things. You're learning new skills. You will make mistakes along the way. So getting that recognition helps you developing that confidence. And if you work with new coworkers, if you get recognized by people, you feel good about it. So it's a way to shape the culture. It's a way to fit in with the people, with your new coworkers, because you're more likely to bond with your the new people you work with if you get recognized and you recognize them.
mhm. Yeah, we talk so much here at Power to Fly about empathy, especially during
Yeah.
this age of AI. And that's what I'm hearing so much of what you're saying. And that often seems at the core of recognition as well, is being empathetic to our fellow coworkers, to the people we manage, and kind of remembering that at the end of the day, we're all human and need to be treated as such.
Exactly, and it's a great way to put it. I'd say empathy and trust, is the two big things
Trust.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
they work together. Yeah.
And You're probably the perfect person to ask this, but can you tell us a bit more about the behavioral science that
Yeah.
actually is behind why recognition and reinforces growth?
Yeah, I do enjoy a lot of those questions because it allows me to go a bit in detail where, sometimes I'll try to keep it a bit short, but yeah, I could talk about that all day. So it goes back to motivation, at the end of the day. So when you get recognized, and if you go more into science into it, it goes through different literature, and that's the cool thing about recognition. So at the basis of it all, you could go towards back to the biology of humans in a way, but also the neuropsychology. So when you get recognized, what happens is that your brain releases dopamine, which is the neurotransmitter that, motivates you, gives pleasure. And
Mhm.
that's simply what happened where you're highly motivated and when you learn things or you do things that you enjoy. So recognition actually, have that kind of physical impact on you. So that's, I think one of the cool things out there. But then you can go in the literature on organizational behavior and motivation and things like that. And one of the most, I think, theory that most people know about is the Maslow theory of needs. I think you've heard about it, hierarchy of needs, right?
Mhm.
So it's
Yes.
basically that pyramid where the most bottom aspect, you have the need for security and safety, right? Once those meet are met, you go up through the ladders until you become self-actualized, which is the highest point, whereas basically as a human, you achieve your highest potential. But in the middle of there, what you have is two ladders. One of them is love and belonging, and the other one is self-esteem. And recognition really tackles that. Like I said before, when you get recognized, you feel good, you feel valued. And what happens there is that you feel that you belong, you feel you're part of the team, you feel you're part of the culture. And it also builds your confidence. You feel competent. You feel that the work that you do, you're good at it, and it builds your confidence and self-esteem. And these are two pillars that are crucial to become self-actualized. But that's more kind of the oldest research. But if you go like more recent wise and you dive into the like more recent theory of of motivation, you have what we call the self-determination theory. And the main point of that theory is you have kind of two type of motivation. We have intrinsic motivation, which is you're motivated because you're passionate about something and you like doing it. It's internal. And there's extrinsic motivation, which is a motivation that you get because you get rewarded for it. So we all work, and a lot of people perhaps don't like their jobs, but they're still motivated to do it because they get paid for it, right? So that
Mhm.
would be external or extrinsic motivation. But what recognition does, it really tackles the intrinsic one. And in terms of the intrinsic motivation, you don't have to love your job to develop that because there's three kind of needs attached to it. The first one is competence. There's that need for competence. If you feel competent at what you do, you're more likely to enjoy it. Let's say you really like baseball or hockey, but you're really bad at it. You probably won't do it as much, right?
Mhm.
Than if you're good at it or something like that. And then there's and recognition reinforces that, like I said before. And then there's the need for belonging, or what the theory calls relatedness. So the people you do the activity with or you work with, you actually enjoy being with them. So it's the feeling that you belong, that you fit in. As a human, you need that. And the last one is autonomy. You feel you can do your job in the way that you do. That you're flexible doing your like working remotely would be like you're autonomous in some ways, right? You can do the
Mhm.
job. You're not controlled in a specific way. You have to do the job this way. You can kind of have some decisive factor on how you do your job. So that would be one. So recognition really tackles mainly belonging, relatedness, and competence, and that kind of drives autonomy as well. And that's why it's worked so well, because it develops intrinsic motivation. And then if you get rewarded for these things, so if you attach a reward to the recognition, then you're also building extrinsic motivation. So you have the whole package to motivate people. So that's why I think recognition and rewards as well is so amazing if you use them correctly. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And for everyone listening, yes, there will be a quiz later. No, no, not really. So what are some practical ways that companies can create consistent high impact recognition moments? I'm thinking here at Power to Fly, we try to do one-on-ones every week, every other week, just so there's always that touch point. So like you said, maybe it's not a public recognition, but we can at least recognize the people who are direct reports or vice versa in those kind of meetings. But what other practical ways are there to create these consistent high impact
Yeah.
moments?
Yeah. So I would say there's two things, right? And before I dive into it, I think the main goal here is to increase the frequency as a first step, like we discussed
Hmm.
earlier, and so on. But I was talking to a friend who is like a high level manager, at a company. I was talking to him a couple of weeks ago. We are talking about recognition, and a complaint he had about it is I'm so busy, I don't have time to recognize people.
Hmm.
You get that a lot. Uh, but the thing is, the irony of it all is that it doesn't take a lot of time, to recognize individuals. Like high impact recognition can be 60 seconds, 90 seconds. And if you have a good system in place, might take 10 seconds to recognize someone. So why you don't have time to recognize people, but you have time to brush your teeth in the morning? You have time to shower. Did you have time to take breakfast? Like it takes more than 10 seconds to do all of these things. Why do you have time to do that? And I don't want to blame people who are busy. People are busy, and I get it. And the solution in a practical way here is to make it a habit. Recognition
Mm.
needs to become a habit, needs to be part of your day-to-day at work activities. Because if it's a habit, then you have time to do it. And that
Well,
has to be an yeah,
that goes back to like the gym metaphor too, right? Like
exactly.
once you start making gym a habit, you're kind of stuck with it. But if you're only doing it once in a while, it's not going to catch on.
Totally. And that's the thing that and it starts, I'd say, from the top of your company. Like it starts from the top and then goes down where it has to
Hmm.
be in your organizational values, has to be important that here in our company we recognize people because we value it and we think it's important. And that would be the first thing I would say. Make it a habit. That would be a really practical way because that's going to increase frequency. Because if it's a habit, people will do it. And then it's have a system in place to do it. It doesn't have to be a super comprehensive, recognition program with a recognition platform. Of course, these helps because you invest in it and it provides a structure and a system in place. But simply, like you said, having a one-on-one, structuring that, and I think as a leader, a good thing to do is meet up with your team and mentioning that is important for us to do that. Track who gets recognized in a way, you can track it in an Excel sheet if you need to, each time you recognize someone or something like that. So you know that as you recognize people, everyone
Hmm.
get recognized fairly. And also you ask people, how often like the type of recognition that they're getting and things like that. So put a system in place. Ideally, you want that system to be at the highest level of your organization. But if it's not possible to, at least do it with do it with your peers. It's going to have an impact still if you do it with your peers. And if you're a manager, you're leading a team, start it with your team. And then, you can maybe convince higher leadership that it's working for you.
Hmm. And one question I wanted to make sure I asked you before we run out of time, because you shared all this great data before with these numbers, but how can organizations measure the ROI of their recognition programs beyond anecdotal feedback? Because to continue to keep them going, of course, leaders are going to want to see that kind of data.
Yes. So going up from the system, you want to have a system with data as well. And I would say to implement or having a way or process where you measure three different layers of data. The first one is to measure leading indicators. And in this case, it would be things, what drives your culture or what drives,
Mm.
things that would increase our revenue over time. So these are the leading indicators. And you could measure recognition frequency and quality using those. So recognition frequency would be how often you could do a quick survey or just measure each time someone get recognized. But a quick survey question could be how often do you get recognized by your peers? And then how often do you get recognized by your manager, supervisor, and so on? You could have a few questions on recognition quality as well. And then you look at people outcomes, which is engagement levels, turnover intention, thinking about leaving, satisfaction or ENPS scores, burnout, stress. You could have a survey. Typically, all great engagement survey has those questions that measure these things. And finally, you want business outcomes, kind of the revenue generating things like turnover, absenteeism, productivity, performance, quality, customer reviews, customer Glassdoor reviews, anything data that you collect that
Mhm.
has a direct impact on the revenue that your company is generating. And then you want to go beyond the descriptive aspect of your data. So instead of only looking at, oh, recognition went up 10% this year, or in the 99th percentile of recognition, great, or engagement went up 20%. what you want to do is look at the impact of different variables with each other. So you want to look at, let's say, how does recognition impact engagement? And then how does that engagement level impact, my customer satisfaction, feedback or things like that. And then you can really see what drives the ROI of your company. And I,
I
I
love
went
that.
I went
Yeah.
really quick, but that's a good
No,
way to
no,
do
that's
it.
great.
Yeah.
Well, and I think going back to the different types of recognition, like making sure that in those surveys you have anonymous surveys, you have surveys where people can also state their name if they want. I think important that way you can get the most data, the most truthful data there.
Yep.
And before we run out of time, just what's obviously like we're all going to make mistakes, but is there a single common recognition mistake that you're seeing leaders make right now?
So I would say like one big mistake that leaders do, especially in time where like especially in the economy we're in, where you have to deal with
Mm,
change and transformation a lot, downsizing and things like that. And that has a big impact on morale, employee morale, and things and so on. And a big mistake that you see is recognition just stops from the leader perspective because then they don't have time anymore. And bringing back to the gym analogy, like when your life sometimes gets really hard or there's like things you don't anticipate, you might just stop going to the gym simply because I have to deal with other problems at the moment. So if you do that, you lose the energy, let's say that going to the gym gives you and the happy mood or the positive mood that going to the gym gives you or exercising gives you. So having like a structure where you always recognize, I think is crucial, that you don't stop when things get difficult. And that's a mistake I see a lot. When things gets hard, recognition like decreases or stops.
yeah, no, I think that that's true. And I think right now, as people are kind of trimming wherever they can and teams are smaller, I think a lot of this might fall to the wayside. But that's, I think the data that you showed shows the business case as well as the human empathetic case
Yep.
for keeping all of this going. And I love to hear more too. Can you tell us a bit more about Bucketlist as well? How Bucketlist is helping companies in terms of recognition, and of course, where they can also connect with you, Yannick, or with Bucketlist as a whole.
Yeah, so Bucketlist is a recognition platform. So it's like I said, it's basically a great system where you can recognize your employees, put it in place, and we also provide rewards. So as you recognize your employees and things like that, you can provide points. You receive points from the recognition, and then you have access to a whole marketplace where you can buy different things that you're interested in, so you choose the reward that you want basically based on the recognition that you receive. So I think it's a really, really great thing. And then we work really hard to have really good research behind what we do and provide good services and work well with our customers so that we get the best out of the recognition program. If you're interested in Bucketlist, you could send me an email or you could send an email as well, I think, to Becca, at Yannick, Yannick at bucketlist, rewards.com, or at Becca at bucketlistrewards.com, which is Beka. And we can connect you with whoever you need so we can you know get you to the next step and work with you. We'll be happy to work with you to create an amazing recognition program.
Amazing. And we'll include, if you're watching this live, we will have some of those emails and links in our post-event, post-summit blog post. If you're watching the recording of this, well, that is already live. So you can just go to Power to Fly and check that out. And what I love about the marketplace that you described there too is in this remote world, it's not just like, let's throw a pizza party, because again, that doesn't
Exactly.
necessarily help everyone. People want to be able to pick and choose how they reward themselves or are rewarded.
So people got amazing things, our customers. We had great customer stories. Some people, did their dream trip, went to Italy, skydiving or things like that. You can buy great experiences. Other people, I remember I was doing a focus group and someone saying was so happy because they just bought an iPad and, they wanted an
Oh,
iPad for a
nice.
while and they just got it with their recognition points. So there's so many things. You get whatever you want. And I think that's good. So you don't have to focus too much on how do I reward my employees? Like you said, the party pizzas, right? Which sometimes doesn't hit the nail quite quite right.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's very true. And I will not be doing the skydiving. But thank you so much,
Exactly.
Yannick. This was a wonderful. Again, we'll share all these resources well. But thank you so much for being here today and speaking to the Power to Fly community.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a pleasure to be here and have a great time.
Thank you.